Good morning. This is Dr. Anshoo Sharma from Government College, Jaksu. Today, we shall be doing another poem by another romantic poet, that is John Keats. His picture is there on your screens, and he is the poet belonging to the second generation of the romantics. Earlier I had given you a background about the romantic poets, and I had told you that how the romantic age is also divided into the precursors of the romantic age, the main romantic age, and afterwards the poets who came after, towards the end of the romantic age. And in the main, we have two senior poets, Wordsworth and Coleridge, who were the major figures of the romantic period. And towards the end of the romantic era, it was the younger generation of poets, including Shelley, Keats, and Byron, who made a major impact on this movement. And Keats' poem, Ode to Autumn or To Autumn, is prescribed in your syllabus. And before I start talking about the poem, I'll just give you a short background, a brief background about Keats. Keats was born in 1795 in England, and he died very early at just 25 years of age in February 1821. He was one of the major figures of the younger generation of poets. And before his death, he published his works only for around 4 years. I mean, his works were in publication for only around 4 years before his death. And his death was again due to tuberculosis, because during that time TB had not found a cure, and it was kind of considered sometimes to be passed on, because from one family member to another. And his mother had tuberculosis, his brother had tuberculosis, and he too himself died of tuberculosis. And during his lifetime, his poems were not very well received. I think this happens with, we have seen this happening with most of the poets, that they go unrecognized while they're alive, and it's only after their death that they gain recognition. And something similar happened with Keats as well. And his reputation grew after his death till, you can say, in the 19th century, he became one of the most beloved of the English poets. His works, his letters, his poems, they became a subject of research, and a lot of critics and readers, upheld his poetry, upheld him as a great romantic poet. And his poems are also marked by the characteristic style, where he uses, his imagery. It's heavily loaded with sensuality, and especially his series of odes. And the poems, they aim to accentuate extreme emotion through emphasis on natural imagery. Now, this emphasis on nature, you can see it's like part and parcel of the romantic period. And most of the poets are, they make use of their surroundings, they make use of the nature around them, and they make it a vehicle to convey all those heavy emotions that they experience. They are conveyed through this emphasis on nature and its imagery. And now Keats, both poems and letters, they are, I think, perhaps one of the most analyzed and one of the most popular literary texts of today. And his most acclaimed works would include Ode to Nightingale, would include On First Looking into Chapman's Homer, and also Ode to Grecian Urn. Now, Ode to Grecian Urn, if you remember, I don't know if you've heard of it, but uh, truth is beauty, beauty, truth. This is like one of the most popular lines, and it is taken from the Ode to Grecian Urn. As far as his childhood is concerned, Keats did not belong to a very rich family. He was not very well off. He had lost his father at a very young age to a horse riding accident. He had fallen off the horse and then he never recovered. So, at the age of 8, he lost his father. And then later, he lost his mother also at the age of 14 only, and that was to tuberculosis. So his, you can say, his childhood, he did not have a very secure childhood as far as you know uh, the care and concern of the parents is concerned, or as far as financial well-being is concerned. So he and his siblings, they were four in all, they were brought up by the grandparents. And interestingly, in his biography, we find that when he was younger, he was of a very volatile nature. He was aggressive. But towards the age of 13, he started calming down, he started cooling down. And this is quite interesting because teenage years are usually those years that are marked with the aggression, usually. The age, the teens are supposed to be the troublesome teens, but for Keats, it was like the age when he started calming down. Maybe because he started, his interest in literature started. He started reading, he started writing, and somehow his temperament became calmer. It became cooler. And in 1815, this is another facet, that in 1815 he started studying medicine, and he was kind of destined to become a doctor. That's what he felt, that my destiny is to become a medical doctor. And his family and friends were quite supportive in this, because they felt that the financial crisis would finally come to an end, and his this profession would give him financial security. Though while studying medicine, it meant spending money, and his friends and his family members came forward to support him, and he was very keen to become a doctor. But again, when he started studying, he realized that while pursuing medicine, his time of writing was cut into. Like, he had to give up his time for writing to study of medicine, and that was not something that he was comfortable with, because writing came naturally to him. And finally, towards the end of 1816, he decided to give up medicine in favor of writing poetry. And this was something which was met with lot of opposition, because neither his friends nor his family were very keen about this idea, because already quite a bit of money had been spent and he was doing quite well in the field of medicine. So they wanted him to complete his studies, but he was not willing to give up his writing. And also at that time, his brother was also detected with tuberculosis, and he took his brother up in the highlands to take care of his brother, and to be with his brother, and he did not neglect his brother at all, and he took good care of him, and tried to do as much as possible. But finally lost him in the year 1818, because tuberculosis, as we all know, was not did not have any cure at that time. And finally, in 1820, he himself was diagnosed with tuberculosis, and by 1821, his condition deteriorated, and his friends came to his rescue. They tried to take care of him as well as they could, but even they could not save him. And in February 1821, we lost him. And when he died, he requested his friends to, write on the tombstone, to write this line: "Here lies one whose name was written in water." Now you can read the detail on the page. It's there on your screen. I will just quickly read what is written on the grave. "This grave contains all that was mortal of a young English poet, who on his deathbed, in the bitterness of his heart, at the malicious power of his enemies, desired these words to be engraven on his tombstone: Here lies one whose name was writ in water." So, this was his desire now to be written on water. As you know, that uh, Water is something which is liquid, which does not hold anything permanently. And anything, if you try to write something in water, it is kind of, it's a far reaching idea, because yeah, nothing can be written on water as such. So this was what Keats' sensibilities. I mean, this idea, this whole concept reflects the sensibilities of Keats' mind and the way his thinking ran. And he was a lovable poet, and we do remember him, though his tombstone states, or though his desire was that his name should be written on water, that is, he should be forgotten. But he has left such an impact that he still resides in our hearts, and we read his poetry with so much love. Now, Ode to Autumn is the poem which talks about the season autumn, which is, a beautiful season, no doubt, where you see everything amber, everything golden, or everything red, deep reds hues, are reflected in everything around us. And it's just before the winter season. Winter season is culmination, winter season is the end of everything, it's end of life. And autumn also, kind of, this poem has the hidden idea of death behind it, because Keats was very sure that he's not going to live for long, and that he is also suffering from tuberculosis. And this poem was written in 1819, and it's part of the last six odes that were written. I've just mentioned the name earlier: Ode to Nightingale, Ode to Grecian Urn. These are some of the most studied and most celebrated poems of the English language. And in 1819, he wrote this poem, and things were like, not very. He had lost his brother, and maybe he felt that he is also not well, and he had this inkling that death is going to come soon. So he praises autumn in this poem, and he describes its abundance, he describes the harvest season, and he describes the transition into the winter, finally, the cold winters, and uses very, very intense sensuous imagery to elevate the fleeting beauty of this passing season of autumn. Seasons are all passing. None of the seasons are permanent, as we all know: spring, summer, autumn, winter. It's a continuous cycle. And this cycle may be permanent, but the seasons are not permanent. They are there for a few months, and then they give way to the next season, which again gives way to the next season, and this cycle continues. So, autumn is fleeting, but its beauty is nothing less than spring. This is what the poet is trying to emphasize, that spring may be beautiful, it is one season which is celebrated by many, but Keats decided to celebrate the beauty of autumn. And in the poem, you'll find that he kind of, challenges spring as to how do you say that autumn is anything lesser than spring? Autumn has its own beauty, and it is in no way anything lesser to the beauty of spring. So, before moving on to doing the analysis of the poem, I'll just quickly read the poem. I have it with me on the screen. You can see it. I'll just read it. You can get the hang of the poem, listen to it, uh, try and catch the words. I have put down most of the meanings for you to see. But before going into a detailed analysis of the poem, I'll just read it. To autumn, season of mists and mellow fruitfulness, close bosom friend of the maturing sun, conspiring with him how to load and bless with fruit the vines that round the thatch eaves run, to bend with apples the mossed cottage trees, and fill all fruit with ripeness to the core, to swell the gourd, to plump the hazel shells with a sweet kernel, to set budding more and still more later flowers for the bees, until they think warm days will never cease, for summer has overbrimmed their clammy cells. Who hath not seen thee oft amidst thy store? Sometimes whoever seeks abroad may find thee sitting careless on a granary floor, thy hair soft lifted by the winnowing wind, or on a half reaped furrow, sound asleep, drowsed with the fume of poppies, while thy hook spares the next swathe and all its twined flowers. And sometimes, like a gleaner, thou dost keep steady thy laden head across a brook, or by a cedar press with patient look, thou watchest the last oozings, hours by hours. Where are the songs of spring? Ay, where are they? Think not of them, thou hast thy music too, while barred clouds bloom the soft dying day, and touch the stubble plains with rosy hue. Then, in a wailful choir of small gnats mourn, among the river's sallows borne aloft, or sinking as the light wind lives or dies, and full grown lambs loud bleat from hilly bone. Hedge crickets sing, and now with treble soft, the red breast whistles from a garden croft, and gathering swallows twitter in the skies. So you can see that this is the complete poem, and these are the three paragraphs. And I have also chosen the format which shows you that there are 33 lines in all in this poem. And uh, while I read the poem, I hope you can catch hold of the lyrical quality, you can catch hold of the rhyme scheme, and also the various poetical devices that have been used. For example, while reading, I could catch quite a lot of alliteration is there in this poem. So I shall end the video right here. You can read the poem, go through it. If you can see, I have written down the meanings of most of the difficult words. You can read them. And in the next video, I shall be doing the complete analysis of this poem. So once again, thank you very much for your patient listening. Till the next video. Bye bye.